Good morning on this very warm day. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. My name is Laura Christian Imbornoni, and I'm the worship associate today. I'm very happy to greet everyone here today as in the sanctuary, as well as our virtual attendees. A special welcome if you're joining us for the first time. If you'd like more information about our congregation, please fill out one of the guest cards in the pew rack in front of you. You can place the card in the offering plate when it comes around later. If you're joining us virtually, see our website, uucleveland.org, for more information. We acknowledge that we're gathering on the lands once inhabited by the Erie, the Haudenosaunee, and the Arishinaabe peoples, also known as the Three Fires Council. We recognize the need to learn more about these complex and sometimes painful histories. We realize the responsibility to care for this land we inhabit now and to respect the diverse cultures who preceded us, as well as those who gathered here in our era. And now we're about to enter sacred space, so please take a moment to turn your phones to worship mode. We're going to do something a little bit different, lighting the chalice today. And we have lighting the chalice Reverend Dr. Randy Partain. So today, you can turn to page 146. You can remain seated, and we're going to sing the song, Soon the Day Will Arrive, as he lights the chalice.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to be with you in worship today, whether you're here in person or joining us online. David Benner writes, "The spiritual life starts with awareness. Limited awareness equates to a shallow spiritual life. No one can ever be more aware of the transcendent than they are aware of the things going on within and around them. So the spiritual journey, therefore, starts with awakening and with being prepared to awake again and again as we realize that we have once again drifted to sleep." So in that spirit of awakening, may we be together in worship today, not just waiting and seeing, but committing to a world where we are sharing and carrying greater wholeness into reality. We are going to sing together, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to sing Woyaya, which is hymn number 1020 in the Teal hymnal. And as we sing this song of movement forward, I'll invite you to move forward. If there are any joys or concerns that you would like to place a stone in the water to acknowledge today, whatever we are bringing into this space, we can acknowledge during our opening hymn by placing a stone in the water. And I'll read some of what's in our Joys and Concerns book at the end of the music. But first, before we sing, I invite you to take a moment and welcome one another into this space. Let each other know that they are welcome and valued here. And then we'll sing. Spirit of love and life, which connects all of us together, not just with one another, but connects us with all life, all beings. May we hold these joys and concerns in care. We recognize the grief in the room today. Rich Hallebrand, Debbie Cohen's nephew-in-law, has died at the age of 43, leaving behind twin 13-year-olds. And so we hold all of Rich's family in care during this grief. And we also place a stone of remembrance and care today for the Carney family. Jim Carney, longtime member of the Olmsted UU congregation and the father of our music director, Mike Carney, passed away on June 20th after a long illness. We know that there is longing for healing in this room as well. We send healing thoughts to Pat Moyer, who had shoulder replacement surgery last week. And Lisa Van Cleef has just been moved to the hospice of the Western Reserve in Euclid as the cancer has progressed. So we hold Lisa and her family in our prayers as well. And many more things we bring with us into this room. Things that we are celebrating and that bring us joy and delight, and things that worry us, concern us, we can't quite let go of. For a moment in this place, may we be aware of one another's care and presence, and may we hold all that we bring into this space in community, so that our joys might be magnified and our burdens might be lessened. Amen, and blessed be. I wonder if anyone has accomplished something this year. Did you, I don't know, make it into a new grade? Did you? You did? We both retired. You both retired? That's great. Nick, you accomplished something? Say it one more time. You got into the Cleveland Orchestra Children's Chorus. That's great. Any other fantastic accomplishments? I mean, it doesn't have to be fantastic. It could be little things. Sometimes the little things are big things. What we got, Jack?
I have 3 pieces being published in a fictional journal.
3 pieces are being published in a fictional journal. Great. Well, sometimes the things that we want to accomplish are not just one-step things. Sometimes they take a bit of a journey to be able to get there. You don't just get pieces published because you write a thing one day and then somebody comes and says, oh, we're going to publish that. It takes a lot of steps. You don't just get into the Cleveland Orchestra chorus because somebody hears you singing in a restaurant one day and says, oh, you should be in the chorus. You have to work at it. You have to practice at it. So there's a lot of steps to that. And so Kyla was wanting to accomplish something too, and Kyla knew that there would be a lot of steps. Maybe Kyla wanted to retire. I don't know. Maybe Kyla wanted to sing in the children's chorus. But Kyla knew that on the other side of the bridge was that thing. But Kyla had to get across the bridge first. And so Kyla was ready. Kyla was ready to get across the bridge, got to the bridge, and wouldn't you know it, there is a monster at the bridge. Yeah, I know. I should have warned you about the monster, I know. This one was really a terrifying monster too. It was big, it had all kinds of fur, it had bulging eyes, maybe too many of them. I don't know if you have a thing about eyes, we'll just say they were bulging. Horns that were big and black and twisty, and it was growly and mean, and it said, there's no way you're getting across this bridge, and Kyla went running and thought, oh no, I gotta give up on singing in the children's chorus because now I can't get past that monster. And then Kyla got angry and said, you know what? I'm not going to let that monster stand in my way. I'm getting across that bridge. And Kyla got on all the armor that Kyla had, because, just in the hall closet, you've got armor sitting around, and went up and was going to tackle that monster. But the more Kyla fought against the monster, the stronger the monster seemed to get, until Kyla was exhausted and the monster seemed bigger and scarier than ever, standing between Kyla and the bridge. And Kyla said, well, I'm not going to be able to fight it, but I'm not going to run away from it, because I really want to get over there to that thing that's important to me, to get those pieces published in the journal. And so Kyla tried another tack, and she started singing to the monster about all of the things that were on the other side of the bridge and how hopeful she was about them. And Kyla sang about her work and her commitment to those things that were important. And as Kyla sang, the monster got kind of small, maybe even more like a shadow. And when Kyla was done singing, the monster said, but what if you get tired on the way across the bridge? And Kyla said, well, I can rest. I'll just take a rest on the bridge. And the monster said, yeah, but it's a really high bridge, and what if you look down at the wrong moment and you fall over the side of the bridge? And Kyla said, I'll be careful on the bridge. And the monster said, okay, I tried to protect you from all of this work and this long, long journey, but I guess all I can do is just go with you. And so Kyla and her shadow now, because it wasn't much of a scary monster anymore, started across the bridge. And Kyla kept focusing on what was in front, and when Kyla got tired, they took a rest, and they made it to the other side. And sometimes we might face bridges too, and those bridges might have unexpected monsters, and if we try to fight them, they might just seem to get stronger and stronger. But if we focus on what it is that we are wanting for our lives or for the world, we might find that those monsters are trying to protect us from something that we don't need protecting from. And really, they can just be shadows that go along with us for the ride. May you face fewer monsters than anyone, but also may you sing to them when they find you.
We have a timely offering partner today, Northeast Ohio Voter Advocates, also known as NOVA. This is a grassroots organization that seeks to expand voter participation to all voters so that all voters are heard in our democracy. NOVA has registered thousands of underrepresented voters in food pantries, social service agencies, correctional facilities, and schools. Our fellow congregant Susan Alcorn serves on the board of NOVA and has conducted voter registration training right in this building. It's NOVA's goal to register voters and provide vote by mail to thousands every year. Volunteers are needed, and you can contact Susan Alcorn if you're interested. NOVA's research and advocacy have improved local and state election laws. Their testimony on the local, statewide, and national level resulted in improved voter accessibility for all, including underrepresented populations. Please place your offering, cash or check, made payable to UUCC in the collection plate as it's passed. You may also contribute via Cash App to $, uppercase UUCC 44122. Use the memo line to indicate today's date, June 29, and our plate recipient, NOVA. I'm reading from The Tragic Gap by Parker Palmer. By the tragic gap, I mean the gap between the hard realities around us and what we know is possible. Not because we wish it were so, but because we have seen it with our own eyes. For example, we see greed all around us, but we've also seen generosity. We hear a doctrine of radical individualism that says everyone for himself or herself. But we also know that people can come together in community and make common cause. As we stand in the gap between reality and possibility, the temptation is to jump into one side or the other. If you jump onto the side of too much hard reality, you can get stuck in corrosive cynicism. You game the economic system to get more than your share and let the devil take the hindmost. If you jump onto the other side, too much possibility, you can get caught up in irrelevant idealism. You float around in a dream state saying, wouldn't it be nice if? These two extremes sound very different, but they have the same impact on us. Both take us out of the gap. And the gap is where all the action is. That's the gap Martin Luther King stood in his entire life. The gap where Nelson Mandela placed himself. That's the gap where Rosa Parks and Dorothy Day stood. I call it tragic because it's a gap that will never close, an inevitable flaw in the human condition. No one who stood for high values like love, truth, justice, has died being able to declare victory once and for all. If we embrace values like those, we need to find ways to stand in the gap for the long haul and be prepared to die without having achieved our goals. That means we need to change our calculus about what makes an action worth taking and get past our obsession with results. Being effective is important, of course. I write books because I want to have an impact. But if the only way we judge our action is by its effectiveness, we will take on smaller and smaller tasks because they're the only kind with which we are sure we can get results. I'm not giving up on effectiveness, but it has to be secondary to faithfulness.
I have another story. There are no monsters in this story. This is a Buddhist story, a koan, about a girl named Sei who loves her childhood friend, wants to marry this friend. But Sei's father says, no, I have someone else picked out for you. You need to marry the person that I've picked out for you. You can't marry this friend of yours. And so Sei, being young and impassioned and, like we all have been, marries childhood friend and runs away and says, my family might reject me, but I'm going to do what my heart calls me to do. Well, a few years go by, and they start feeling like, we need to reconcile with your family. And so they go back to Sei's hometown where these two grew up, and they go to Sei's father's house, And the young man knocks on the door, says, father answers, says, I'm this person that grew up with your daughter, grew up in this village. And the father says, yes, I remember you well. But who's this woman that you've brought with you? And the man says, this is your daughter, Sei. And the father says, that's impossible. My daughter, Sei, is in her room, in bed, sick, where she has been for years, ever since I told her that she couldn't marry the person that she wanted to. And so they go to Sei's room, and there Sei is, in bed, sick, seeming malnourished and somehow weak. And when the two Seis see one another, they join into one. Which brings up a question, but I'm going to wait on the question, because I want to talk about another question first. The first year I was here, there was a group of congregants. I believe it was people from the search committee and maybe a few board members. I don't remember exactly who was in the conversation. But they said, okay, you've been here a few months. We need to ask you a question. We're going to set up a Zoom call, because it was that kind of question where you set up a Zoom call. So we did that. And they said, when you were candidating, when we told the regional UU folks that we were considering you as a candidate, they said, we think Randy will be a great fit for the congregation if the congregation is willing to do its work. And I nodded, I think. And then they said, what did they mean by that? I don't know. Not having been in the conversation, not being in those people's minds, I couldn't answer with any kind of certainty what they would have meant by that statement. But I said, what I might mean if I were to say that, if the congregation is willing to do its work, is that we can imagine what it would be like for our community to live impeccably as the embodiment of our values. We can imagine what that could be. And if we're honest, we know that current reality is not that. Current reality is not us living as the impeccable embodiment of our values. So there's a gap in between there. I called it an integrity gap. Parker Palmer calls it a tragic gap. I don't know that it's tragic, but crossing that gap as much as possible is the work of the congregation, the work of any spiritual community. The work of the congregation is about putting our spiritual principles in motion, not just letting them sit there as pretty things that we like, but putting them in motion, having them be active in the world, about living like the people that we claim to be. Another way of saying that might be to say the work of any spiritual community is aligning our lives as individuals and as a community, aligning our lives with our values. And the world needs that right now. I think the world needed Unitarian Universalism before, but if it hasn't become apparent yet, I think the world needs what Unitarian Universalism has to offer now as much as ever. So we have this value of transformation as one of these 6 values that we have claimed as expressions of liberating love. But the transformation is not just change for the sake of changing something. We want to get closer to liberating love, which we might also name shalom. Shalom is a word that a lot of us, I think, make synonymous with peace. But shalom has a deeper meaning than that. It is about this peace, but it's peace because of wholeness, peace because there is connection with the divine, with oneself, with other people, with the world. Shalom is this image of wholeness that we might aspire to, but it's tragic in Parker Palmer's words because we can't ever quite get to the perfection of full shalom. But we can imagine what it would be like. What does it feel like in your body to imagine the possibility of shalom, something beyond what's reflected in current reality? Just imagine with all your heart what it would be like to live in a world where everyone has enough, where everyone is loved well, where everyone's voice is heard. What does it feel like to imagine a world where everyone is whole and complete, where everyone is generous and contributes to the common good, where everyone is included and treated rightly and fairly, where everyone lives without fear. You might not be able to draw a picture of that in your mind. There may not be an image playing like a motion picture in your head of children dancing freely and without care. But how does it feel in your body to consider the possibility of shalom? We want that. We want to move toward that possibility, I think, as a spiritual community and as individuals. We want to, but we don't always. Which brings up this question of Sei. The happy Sei who has married her childhood sweetheart, the sick Sei waiting in bed because she's being obedient to father and culture. Which one is the real Sei? Which congregation is the real congregation? The one that fully embodies our values in that moment where we show up and do amazing things, or are with one another in a way that is liberating and loving and offers that sense of shalom because of a conversation in coffee hour, or the way that we show up at a congregational conversation or some gathering? Is that the real congregation? Or is the real congregation the one that gets locked into petty arguments from time to time, and the one that shows up protective because we just aren't sure that we're going to be welcomed the way that we need to be? The one that makes sure that we've got our sense of safety without necessarily worrying about whether the people around us are safe. The one that gets a little bit prickly about how much money we're going to spend in order to live into our values. Which is the real congregation? And Parker Palmer would say, well, both. We do it all. We're human beings. We are the worst and the best of all that it means to be human. But we can't wallow in one or the other because we're less effective that way. We have to live in the gap. We have to live in that space of possibility where we're moving toward our values more and more every day, and less mired in the things that don't really reflect our values. But we have to be honest that we're still there. We're still sick in bed, part of us. So, there's a mental model in the pew racks. It's a colorful little 3 circular thing. I'm hoping that these will stick around. I know that some of them will grow wings, but I'm hoping that they stick around for the next few months. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, but there are some things there that you can read. This is a mental model that we're going to be welcoming, I hope, for the rest of the calendar year as we think about what it means to live in the gap. And it has 3 pieces to it. One of them is a reflective life. And that can be that we're personally reflective about what our values mean to us individually, but it might also mean that in our committees or our small groups or other spaces we congregate together, that we are reflective and not just trying to accomplish things, but we are reflective about how our values inform how we accomplish and what we accomplish together. There's another piece of it that is about honoring our word, living with integrity, so that day by day we increasingly do the things that reflect what we value. And a third component there is community, because we don't do any of this work alone. We exist in community with other human beings, and we depend on one another for co-regulation and support. So as a congregation, we depend on one another. We have a community of shared purpose and shared vision, but also as Unitarian Universalists, we have a lot of other congregations that we're also in community with that have a shared vision for the world. So all 3 of these pieces are interconnected. None of them is more important than the other. They all interact to create something greater than the parts. And we'll be coming back to that mental model throughout the year as we think about what it means to live into a sense of shalom, wholeness. But there's another foundational concept that I really hate, because there's this foundational concept that I keep coming back to, that information does not bring about transformation. I really hate that, because I want to just be able to know all the things and be able to then live into all the things that I know. but we've had Holy Scriptures from a variety of spiritual traditions available to us for centuries. We have thousands of books at our fingertips now. If we want any kind of information, we can just Google it, and we know what we need to know. If information were all that it took, people would be living deep, transformative lives all the time, embracing Parker Palmer's tragic gap, co-creating a world of greater wholeness. We need more than information if we want to have a thriving spiritual life in a vibrant spiritual community. We have to engage in practicing the things that we say. And practice can look messy sometimes. When we try on new things, we are usually not graceful, and we are never perfect. And so our covenant is another piece of this that holds us as we do this work. We create safe and authentic community with one another, and calling one another back into covenant if we try something and it seems to go off the rails is an important skill for us to have in Unitarian Universalist community. So I wonder what gets stirred up to you when you think about this tragic gap, this dual existence and our place in between it. I don't think that I mentioned this on a Sunday morning, but I'm going to mention it again if I did. There was a high school group that was here for a day as part of a weeks-long summer program. I think they were recently graduated high school students, and they were here with me and a couple of other religious and education professionals, and their topic for the day was intellectual humility. And because there were lots of different spiritual traditions and religious backgrounds represented in the group, the question came up, well, what do you do about Jesus saying that you had to believe in him to go to heaven? Don't you care in your community about where people go when they die? Don't you love your people enough to want them to go to heaven? And trusting that I could challenge these recently graduated high school students who were thinking about intellectual humility, I said, in those gospel stories, Jesus also sends the disciples out in pairs. He sends them out to all of the villages, and he says, come back and let me know how it goes. Go spread the good news to all of the surrounding communities. And that good news cannot be Jesus died for your sins, because Jesus was still there waiting for them to come back. So what could that good news have been? And if I look through all of the gospel stories, Jesus keeps talking again and again about the kingdom of heaven, and he says, it is at hand. The kingdom of heaven is near. And some people think that means you better get your act together because it's about to happen. And I think what Jesus might have meant is it's available to you right now, but we get so wrapped up in other things. It's available to you. It's at hand. It's right there. You could touch it, but we don't. So I think that is this sense of here and not yet that Parker Palmer describes in that tragic gap. It's tragic because we never completely get there, but it's not like we never glimpse it. We still see generosity in the world. We still see transformation in our lives. We still experience justice and equity, and it's not perfect and it doesn't last forever, but we get glimpses of it. And we can create that in moments. And maybe the tragic part is that we have to let it just be for a moment sometimes. But it's helpful, I think, if we get specific. Imagining shalom, imagining the world and the existence of shalom, perfect peace, total wholeness, complete whatever. That's big. It's hard to picture that. We might be able to feel it in our bodies. But homework for this week is maybe get a little more specific. What's one piece of that you can imagine? What's one piece of that shalom that you can imagine either in your lives or in the life of the congregation, something that you could have agency over? You cannot create liberating love for all people all at once right now, but there are some things you might be able to do. What could happen within the next 6 months to 3 years if you were committed to it? Paint a picture, a mental image of what that could be. What will be different about the future than what current reality looks like? You might say something like, in 3 years, we're going to be able to engage conflict in our committees without attempting to dominate or to run from the conflict. I'll be able to say what's so for me and listen deeply to what's so for other people. That would be a specific kind of shalom. Or you might say, in 6 months, I'll be reconciled to someone. Name the person, but someone from whom I'm currently cut off. Maybe here, maybe in your personal life. Something that you can actually move toward. Or in 2 years, we'll be involved in intentional relationship with another community in our neighborhood. There's no right answer to this assignment. There's no wrong answer. Well, if it doesn't come from our values, it's probably the wrong answer. But if it's coming from our values, there's no answer that's better than another. Write down what stirs in your heart and brings hope to you, and maybe share it with a few other people in this community. Our mental model helps us stay connected to our values as we do this work. We could manufacture a vision out of thin air, and when we do that, we tend to create vision that aligns with some external expectation of who we're supposed to be, or we create a vision that we make up because we think we're going to look good if we do that. I'm going to do this thing because then people are going to be impressed. Or we come up with a vision that we can achieve without working too hard, something that we can do without really confronting our deepest fears or our deepest desires. And none of that is really compelling when it comes down to casting vision. So when we begin with our values and we reflect on what those call us to do, we can invite ourselves into that gap to bring ourselves a little closer to shalom and to recognize that there are always going to be things to work on in current reality. So we'll explore this summer about some of the things that get in the way, but we will start from and return to this place of hope and inspiration and imagination because our values matter and our vision for the world matters. May we live into that vision boldly and joyfully. Amen, and blessed be. I thought I had written the hymn number down on my page, but I didn't. We're going to sing together hymn number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit as we raise our voices together. You might notice that on your order of service after the postlude, there are some questions for reflection. We're going to try to be consistent about that, and we'll rev up. There may be some weeks we don't have that. Next week, for example, the poetry small group is going to be leading worship, and there will probably be too many questions for reflection to put on an order of service. But they are also going to have an opportunity in that service for people to share a favorite poem if you would like to do that. So come prepared next week for a poetry service led by the poetry small group. You might talk about these questions in coffee hour, or you might take some time to reflect on them and talk about them in small groups or other places. But either way, I hope you will come to coffee hour, even if you don't want something hot in your body right now. There will hopefully be good conversation and people that are chill. I don't think there's ice cream today, but maybe we can work on that. If you have been joining us online and you have appreciated something about the service, please do like, share, subscribe. This is how we continue to grow our online ministry. And for those of you here in the congregation that haven't heard, any given week, by Tuesday, there are usually about twice as many views online as there have been people in the congregation. And on days like this, maybe even more than that online. So if there's something here that you think would be valuable to other people, please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, even if you were here in person. Reverend Michelle Collins says, "Though we extinguish our flame at the end of a service, may we carry the embers of imagination with us. Carry them forward so that we dream boldly, act with love, and kindle new fires in this world. Go with peace and courage."
And you're invited to join me in reading these words as we extinguish the chalice. Please look for extinguishing the chalice on the yellow card on the back of the pew in front of you. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
you. Oh, thanks.
I have something for you. Organization I've been involved with since 1980. We just had our 7th anniversary. You can see it's a little